Today, what we're going to do is we're going to reshaft a hammer shaft on a hammer that's broken. One of the most misconceptions, the biggest misconception of what we do every day is we kind of have loyalty to our hammer shaft. You see people who put tape around them. They do everything they can, and the one thing that you should probably do is change out your hammer shaft pretty often. You don't want a very thick hammer shaft, and you want an oval shape so that, and you want to make it as small as possible because it's just physics. You want your hammer shaft to give and not your arm. If you have a thick hammer shaft and a big handle, then chances are your arm takes most of the abuse. If you look at an airplane wing, it usually fluctuates a lot. It gives, because if it was rigid, it would crack and break. And basically it's the same thing with a hammer shaft. You want it to be very small and tiny so that it will break. What you don't want to have is a big thick one to where all the vibration goes into your arm. And in today's world, horseshoers are consumers and not manufacturers, so we buy a hammer shaft, we stick it in there, and the hammer shaft company does exactly what they want to do, which is they want to have it not break, because then people bring it back and they get upset. You want to have it to where it is fine, tiny, and flimsy to where it does break, because that is what saves your arm. And I feel pretty fortunate. I've been shoeing horses for 28 years, and a lot of it cold, and I feel that a lot of it is attributed to not having a hammer shaft that is big, thick, and nasty. So what we'll do is we'll cut the head off of one that is going bad, that is splintered, and we're going to put a new hammer shaft in. What you want to have is a parallel. You want to have it be basically the same size as your eye. And then I'm just going to give you a few pointers as to make it last pretty long. But the one thing about shaving up a hammer that is almost like putting an inner tube in a tire is you create almost all your problems right when you put it on. And so if you don't put a hammer shaft in correctly, then it cracks, and it's because of the installation, not of the everyday wear and tear. One thing you'll need is a vise. A post vise or a leg vise is good, but if you have a vise that just mounts on a table, but you want to keep things as square as possible, you want to put the shaft in there, put your hammer to be shafted on, and what you're going to do is you want to do this by hand. You don't want to do it with a sander, because too much material comes off at one time, and then you're past the point of no return. And what I'll do is I'll take a rasp, and I want to kind of use it like a draw blade. Flip it over. See if I'm even in the ballpark. So now, here's one of the most important things to do is make sure that it just barely fits on there, and do not hit it against something to push it on. You want to use its own inertia. So I'm going to hit it from the back side, and I'm just going to drive it on. I got a little more to go, but I want to make sure I clean up right around the collar, because this is what pinches and cracks your hammer shaft. So I'll come up here and I'll just clean up the edges a little bit to where I can get it on there even a little further. Drive it back on to where I got just slightly over. Whenever driving anything on here at all, you always want to use just daylight, or just hold on to it so it doesn't have anything hard and fast, because you don't want to crack or pinch it. I'm going to drive the wooden wedge in there. And then I've got it expanded that much. And then 2 steel wedges. You don't want to hit like this. Like I say, that can splinter the wood or fracture it. So you just want to hold it in your hand and drive it on. What I'm going to do now that I've got it all ready to go is I've got a stock hammer handle. I'm just going to clean up the edges with a file, and then we're going to do what I like is one of the more important things is burn it and put it in linseed oil. So I'm just going to clean up my edges. And just getting any kind of rough edge off of there and making it nice and long oval. Make a nice long oval with it. Feels good. So now we'll go over to the forge and burn it. You want your hammer handle to be as tight and as small as possible for where you don't have to hold on to it. If a hammer handle that is really big and nasty, you have to hold on to it, and that hurts your elbow. It gives you tennis elbow. You want it to be smooth as glass, and you want it to be able to slip a little bit, and you definitely don't want to have to hold on to it. The more petite you make it and the more oval you make it, when your hand gets sweaty, you can hold on to it. A lot of people think that the grip is important, and my elbow doesn't give me any problems whatsoever, and I attribute it to having a nice fine taper. I'm going to burn it. Burning the handle does 2 things. It heats up the wood. We don't have any humidity here in New Mexico, so the linseed oil, I soak it in linseed oil, and that soaks up into the wood, and it gives it a little bit of a rubbery finish to where it gets a little more whip to it, and it lasts a little longer. So what I'll do is I'll burn it. This takes all the rough edges off of the wood. And then what I'll do is take a fine wire brush and get all the roughness off of it. Then I'll take the other side and get the other side. This will heat up the eye a little bit and burn the wood so I get the whole thing. Just trying to make sure I got completely burned. What I'll do is soak it. I got a piece of PVC tube, and I soak it in linseed oil and just keep that eye. The eye is nice and hot, and I keep dabbing that linseed oil onto that eye so that it soaks it in. This keeps it from drying out in humid areas, and definitely soaks up the linseed oil and like I say, gives that wood a little bit of a rubbery whip to it. So once you've reshafted your hammer, a few things to help it last a little bit longer is, one, when you're done at night, do not leave your hammer laying on the face of the anvil. The anvil's hot, you've been making shoes, dries them out, kind of shortens the life. And 2, whenever you're making shoes and you're hitting, when you do this, it slides your hammer up and down on the collar, and it usually fractures your hammer shaft right here. So people who hit here, it's a nervous action, and most people don't know they do it, but that's a no-no. Like I said, hammer shafts If something doesn't feel right, it doesn't work right, it shouldn't take you but several minutes to put a new one in. And do not be loyal to the work that you did. If it doesn't fit or doesn't work or it doesn't suit you, cut it out and put another one in there. And remember that if you are an ignoramus that does this, we'll find you and we'll burn your house down. Thank you very much.
Why can't a bicycle stand on its own?
Why?
Because it's too tired.